たった一人たった一人の私はここ
Reparations on the table, nigga, we ain't seen shit. Put us under pressure, nigga, we ain't even sweat. Came out shining like a diamond in the middle with some mess. On Martin Luther King, bitch, we coming for our check. Headed to the Capitol to stake my feelings in the mind of a radical. You can't ride with me. I'm my only witness when I handle my business. Pull it from their hips, say bye-bye, Billy. No more time for no coasting. I'm on the highway focused. I ain't even smoking, I'm just riding my emotion. Both eyes open, I'm just trying to keep calm. Put an extra set of eyes on them doing recon. Knee deep in snow, say he trying to keep going. Told him get up out the cold before my nigga deform. Every old wound seem to getting retorn. I'ma write deep poems to a nigga reborn. I'ma make a statement before I make it out alive. No Channel 5, I would rather make it live. Before the news try to make a nigga out alive. But the pain in my eyes on a much bigger prize. 501, both hands in the sky. Little do they know it's no plan to survive. I ain't finna give them no chance to decide. I'ma put they feet in both hands in the fire. Dancing in the fire like E-Shake. You gon' test the water, never get both feet wet. We done overexposed the city defense to the overexposure indecent. They don't know they diving in the deep end. Ain't no way that they surviving through the weekend. Everything blown in the flash like a beacon. Drowned in the flames, it's too late to let it sink in. Got 10 ways I can be vengeful. Sitting on 10 grenades, every last pinful. This guerrilla war, they don't know what they in for. I can hear them at the door trying to move in slow. I can hold them off, I got 3 shots. Taking every soul for at least 3 blocks. I can smell the fire burning through the sheetrock. Seeing bodies in the flame, nigga try and reach out. This is how you practice what you finna speak out. Thinking about the facts that they try to leave out. This is for my roots running through the deep south. Dying for a cause, what we finna beef out. If you ain't about the cause, what you finna beef out. Showing up deep, we gon' bring the streets out. Every man line up, showing what your street out. An independent state, what a nigga need now.
Ryu, this is crazy.
Yeah. Watch. Y'all already know what time it is, huh? Watch. Tell them keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama. Everybody gon' get an eye. Everybody that's with them, cause everybody I lit them out. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama. Everybody gon' get an eye. Everybody that's with them, cause everybody I lit them out. Niggas can't stand on shit, we living stressed out. Finna get a medal of honor, we bringin' vex out. And you get stepped on every time you step out. You not a stepper where you from, you a step down. And stop reppin' where you from, you a let down. Can't be seen where you from, you keep your head down. That fat nigga mention my name, I'm breaking lead out. RIP another boss nigga, I think he bled out. He ain't gon' make it, I'm taking another head count. COVID so hot, I keep him from leaving beds out. Niggas self-snitching on live, bringing the feds out. They the last nigga took a O talking about how he dead now. You don't know your life too short, that had me stressed out. Somewhere he took a wrong turn, I on the death route. Try the little boy yard blue, I bring the chef out. Put a whole drum on the 9, that bitch attack now. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama. Everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them cause everybody I hit them up. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness on my mama. Swear to God, everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them cause everybody I lit them out. You can cry all you want, but I don't do tissue. So the guy you don't get through if you let blue get you. I put Nino on that mag, let my boo get you. Making playboy moves with that new issue. When you surrounded by them snakes, you don't know who bit you. And that's the problem with you fakes, you don't know who hit you. And if I'm trying to make it shake, I don't care who with you. Call me Bruce Ambity Sam, I got 2 pistols. AOI, a bunch of lanes, don't let that shoe fit you. And you better keep them tight, don't let that shoe fit loose. I can't miss, everything got shoe hit you. I ain't friendly, ain't shit, about blue been cool. And you know I don't forget them like an elephant. Ayo, and the eye really irrelevant. Assed out, and we know we lacking intelligence. Keep them out your circle before you regret you let them in.
Ryu, this is crazy.
Power to the dark side, family. Power to the dark side. Shout out to Astro in the building. Power to the dark side. Appreciate you, J. Kyle in the building. I already know what time it is. Today we're gonna be going through the metaverse. There was some things I actually ended up debating. Actually, the person that this song was about, and it was some. I came in thinking that we had a 20-minute timer, and we had actually changed the rules, like probably like right before I guess me and his debate, and so I actually ended up only having 10 minutes. So it was a lot of stuff that I left out, and a lot of that information I thought was kind of actually not only was it vital towards the debate, but in general I thought it was vital towards for people just to kind of grasp in general, especially when we talk about the metaverse, right? And so. I think, like I said, a lot of times when we were discussing it in the debate exactly, part of my stance was that we was already living in the metaverse, right, at that time. So we'll be kind of getting into that, right? And so part of my argument was us being monadic minds connected to brains, right? So I was showing that first thing that I was doing was disconnecting the brain and the mind and showing that we were more than just our brains, right? Which pretty much is the foundation of every spiritual system that you deal with on the planet, right? And so also that we all come from a point of singularity, right, which is the highest state of consciousness, right? So that point of singularity, up to according basically what I was saying was that from that point of singularity, that's where um, basically we all begin to dream this one dream, right? So we go from that state of singularity into the Big Bang, and from the Big Bang, right? Now you begin to get the reality that you start to see today. Shout out to Green 101. Appreciate you in the building, God. Appreciate you in the building. So also that this is a state where space and time does not exist, right? So what we end up seeing is our connection, not only online in a way, but in it, well, pretty much, yeah, how we interact online and with each other through communications now and all of that is it allows us to transcend space and time, basically. So it puts me right in your living room. Uh, and that in itself bypasses matter, right? So that kind of lets you know that I'm more than matter. I'm allowed to be. I'm actually in your presence right now, speaking. Right. It's the same thing. That's even the way that you are even receiving this message, right? Through the senses and different things like that. So a lot of even and see, this is a lot of this is even goes back to my debate with Madan when we even talk about what is reality in itself, right? Because a lot of times the way that reality is explained, it's explained like it's something that can be proven, but actually nobody can actually prove anything outside of our head. Nothing can actually be proven outside of our head. And that I think that's an aspect that a lot of people have a tough time grasping, especially, but that's just something that you kind of understand the more that you understand how your senses work, right? So let's keep going. So, and then also that the metaverse is a tool used to transcend space and time, right? So when we talk about the metaverse, it is not a place, right? You are already in it. So this is it's more so of a state of being, right? It's more so of a state of being. So the metaverse is what you make it, right? You already believe it's good, right? Because and the reason why is because you already participate in it. For the most part, we all are interacting in it on a regular basis. It has become a part of our daily lives. And most of us, a lot of us already have different avatars and different things that we already produce inside of the metaverse, right? That will only grow, that will only get more complicated as time goes on. So you can be conscious, right? So a lot of this, especially when we go into this was my argument when we talking about disconnecting the brain and the mind, right? Ma- Making sure that we understood that those two things are something that was separate. So you can be conscious without a brain, right? And I do have examples of that, which I will be showing. Right now, the brain is a filter for information. Notice I use the word filter. Shout out to Northern Bella. I appreciate you in the building. Right? A filter, meaning for information, meaning that it isn't processing all of the info. You're not necessarily getting all of the information from the outside and being able to keep that. The brain is actually filtering the information and keeping what it feels like is actually important. Right? So three, which I talk, part of my argument is that limited information is bad, right? So if you have something, a process that the brain is supposed to be a link between information coming to the mind, and the brain is actually something that's limiting that information, then that's a bad thing, right? Because that kind of leaves you in a vulnerable state as far as what is outside of your head. So now, our interaction in the metaverse is how we unlock this information, right? Because why? Eventually, we like I've been saying, eventually the next step for us when we talk about consciousness and as a collective is actually moving past our brain, moving past the part where the brain is actually filtering out information and actually fully giving yourself a chance to unlock your mind. That moves us into living into a fully mental state, right? Unlimited though this time, because right now the state that you in, even though this is a mental state, you've already agreed upon the laws from the Big Bang when at the time that you decided to dream this dream. Then you already agreed on the laws and the principles of this dream. So now, because of that and the principles that you've already kind of locked in place, or the different programs that you kind of already locked in place, now you're limited by the brain. So you need to be able to unlock that. That's the next step for us as humanity in general, right? So when we talk about singularity, what is singularity? Remember, I did a show actually recently on this. We was talking about the technological singularity, right? At the point where some people believe that the machinery would take over the humans, but in this instance, um, this would be more so of a connection between humans and the machine. Shout out to Aza, I appreciate you in the building, God. Right? So this would be more of a connection, right? So when we talk about singularity, what is singularity, right? This is coming from Erman John. So it's a gravitational singularity or space-time singularity, or simply singularity is the condition in which gravity is so intense that space-time itself breaks down catastrophically. The initial state of the universe at the beginning of the Big Bang is also predicted in modern theories to have been a singularity or a point of asymmetry or perfect symmetry, right? Or a point of perfect symmetry before we move into the state of asymmetry. Power to the dark side, Akash. Appreciate you in the building. So when we talk about monads, right? It's from the Encyclopedia Britannica. It's an elementary individual substance, right? That reflects the order of the world and from which material properties are derived. Shout out to Asiatic Line. Appreciate you in the building, guy. This term was first used by the, let me make sure I got this. Hold on. By the Pythagoreans, right? Was first used by the Pythagoreans. In Leibniz's system of metaphysics, monads are the basic substances that make up the universe, but lack spatial extension and hence are immaterial. That means that this is what creates the material world, right? All things of the material world come from this mind or these minds. Therefore, they are the mind in itself is not a it's not necessarily something that you can necessarily say is a thing because you can't touch it, you can't feel it. It just is. So we talk about dualism in the philosophy of mind. Dualism is the theory that the mental and the physical, or the mind and the body, or mind and brain, are in some sense radically different kinds of things. Right? So this is the process of that. This also goes into you being conscious outside of your brain. Shout out to Emily M. I appreciate you in the building. So now, and this is actually something I'm definitely gonna be doing a show on because this actually I gotta do a full show on this. When we talk about ontological mathematics, right? This is something that comes from what they would call Hyperialism, right? And so when we talk about what is ontological numbers, proves that the shocking truth that the world is not material, but a collective dream. So-called matter is an illusion, and that the ultimate reality is a domain of pure mind. This is what we talk about when we talk about the purely mental state, right? This is not a belief, but a deductive, mathematical certainty. Simple and plain, right? So we talk about the metaverse, a networked collection of inexpensive, self-configuring, immersive environments. The metaverse is a hypothesized iteration of the internet, supporting persistent online 3D virtual environments through conventional personal computing, as well as virtual and augmented reality headsets. So now this is when we start getting into the levels of it. Let's keep going though. So when we talk about virtual reality, right, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, virtual reality or VR, right, this is the use of a computer modeling or simulation that enables a person to interact with an artificial or three-dimensional 3D visual or other sensory environment. The same way that the brain works. We will keep going though. When we talk about VR applications and immerse, right, the user in a computer generated environment that simulates, right? Same thing. This is exactly what the brain is doing. Because remember, when we talk about reality, that can never be proven. Nobody can prove what's happening outside of your head. For the simple, all we can do is agree upon it. So we talk about reality. Reality is only an illusion that we all agree upon. Simple and plain. Interactive devices which send and receive information are worn as goggles, headsets, gloves, and bodysuits. These are just different ways that you interact with that world. Now let's talk about how your brain receives information, right? This is from uclac.ac.uk. Y'all can see what it is, right? Ask an expert your question. How does the brain receive information? Now, all over your body, you have sensors. All over your body, you have sensors, right? That detect different types of information, right? Your eyes, for instance, detect light. All over your skin, you have sensors that detect pressure. Your ears detect sound. Also, all over your body, you have sensors that detect pain. They're all sensors, right? Without these sensors working, you get none of these, right? None of these actions actually come to life. Now, nerves are bundles of neuronal fibers that transmit signals, which are electric impulses. That's all you're getting. No different from when you're in reverse inside of your car and it starts letting you know that something or someone is behind you. Same status. Same exact status. So now, how augmented reality works. This is by Kevin Bosman and Nathan Chandler. Augmented reality is the blending of interactive digital elements like dazzling visual overlays, buzzy haptic feedback, or other sensory projects into our real world environments. Here we go, that word again, real world, right? Now, when we talk about even chasing Pokemon, now watch how people are already immersed. You can kind of see the blending of what they deem as the real world or reality being blended with virtual reality. Now watch this, chasing Pokemon and baby step towards virtual reality image, right? More than 9,000 souls avowed on Facebook they would be attending. This was from the New York Times, 2016. There was a widespread enthusiasm for getting people outdoors by any means possible. People on Trek agreed, right, that this was little short of a miracle. What was they able to do? If you had told me a week ago I should go outside, I would have said, what? Said Anton, a programmer who declined to give his last name. He said he now played Pokemon Go for hours at a time, running in parks and collect the animals. Even people on Fortnite. Is Fortnite dying? How many players in 2021? They're even getting even more people. However, Epic does not take the time to share statistics when it comes to the significant in-game events like the Travis Scott concert in April of 2020, which drew a peak concurrent player count of 12 and a half million. Right now, even when we talk, we can continue when we talk about Anshin Chung, a real estate tycoon in the digitally simulated world known as Second Life, has apparently become the first virtual millionaire. Right. So even as we see, as we get pushed more so into the current events that we are kind of going to, where a lot of people is already forced at home. See, in a lot of ways, we've kind of been trying to fight the direction that we've been going as a in general, but they've already coerced us righteously and immersed us inside of the metaverse, right? So here is even another example. So when we talk about here's how Zoom is helping people create a new world, right? And a hybrid work. In the early days of the pandemic, Zoom's daily meeting participants grew 30 times from 10 million participants to more than 300 million participants. Think about that, right? So you've already been kind of pushed into this new age. Zoom is creating the next iteration of communication and collaboration tools that will help companies foster better connectivity, even when workers are not all together, right? So we even have her able to work at home. Sending employees home to work remotely when the pandemic first emerged was a seismic shift for nearly every business. And the ones who weren't able to actually shift over into that lane, a lot of those businesses fail and are still falling today. And are still falling today. And see, a big problem is I keep saying this. A lot of people are expecting things to go back to normal. Shout out to Amari Sweets. Appreciate you in the building. A lot of people are expecting things to go back to normal. They're not. They're not. Things are changed forever. So now, when we talk about the concept of the metaverse, right, which was coined, let me make sure I got this. Okay, so cool. Here we go. So now you're living in the metaverse, you just don't know it. This is by Dan Popper, the director of the content at StackOverflow.blog, right? Let's go. The concept of the metaverse was coined by sci-fi author Neil Stephenson decades ago. Have we reached some meaningful inflection point in our journey towards this? There have been a lot of chatter lately about the metaverse sparked by Mark Zuckerberg's repeated declaration that building a virtual world is his company's next big ambition, and the announcement of the Horizon workrooms and things that ambition closer to reality. That bring and workrooms brings that ambition closer to reality. Matter of fact, I probably should. Yeah, at least 2 hours a day for work. That's a fact. It's a fact, right? So a question worth asking is why now? The concept of the metaverse was coined by the sci-fi author Neil Stephenson decades ago, and technologists have been writing about it on and off ever since. First, an ongoing pandemic has driven many to more fully adopt remote work. Companies like Facebook are betting that that will lead to a boost in offices relying on virtual reality and digital avatars to forge connections and recapture some of the spark that comes from face-to-face interaction. See, they're already working on now the alternative. They are, trust me, once the money is already spent in this direction, there's no going back. And we already know like I said, things will never be the same again. So second, but perhaps more novel is the growing appetite for the digital artifacts like NFTs or non-fungible tokens. Most of us already live in the metaverse to varying degrees, and its increasing presence in our lives will be fostered by a slow accumulation of digital worlds and goods growing deeper roots into our personal and social selves. Now, this kind of goes into also what I was talking about last time when I talked about how we make our investments and making sure that we're not behind. You want to be somebody that even if it doesn't turn out to be real, if let's say it does, you want to be somebody that owns a planet and you're selling property off of it than somebody that has to buy a planet where you have to pay because just the same it's going to be ways set up where you're going to be paying things to even go to work even online. They're going to be paying you to park your digital card. They're going to be paying you for you're going to pay for your digital seat. There's gonna be a lot of different ways. So in a lot of ways, you're gonna want to be ahead of the game. Maybe you could be somebody that sells office space, digital office space. So as we talk about the rise of the crypto economy, has generated new forms of currency and collectibles, allowing creatives new ways to monetize and encouraging humans to do what comes naturally to them, seeking out new ways to grow their social and financial capital. Remember, there are multiple forms today of currency. Attention is one of them. Now, the creeping spread of the metaverse. Let's keep going. The metaverse slips into daily life differently depending on who you are. Let's say you are a hermit who lives in a cabin surrounded by woods. Life for you resembles a contest alone. And you just doing the same thing. You just on the hunt for food and then you back home. You cook the food, you back home. So yeah, your interaction with the metaverse is probably not happening, right? But when we talk about the collective, what about a senior citizen? Now we start getting a little bit closer to people. A senior citizen who grew up in the age before the internet. Maybe you spend as much time away from a screen as in front of you, or more. The bridge game with your friends and the early bird special with your neighbors are as important to you as the number of likes on your occasional Facebook post. But you might also be a grandmother who spends as much time posting on Facebook as potting, as potting plants. The conversation around an anonymous figure like Q, who has no material form, might be your guiding maxim these days. So, without noticing, you have allowed an entirely digital entity to become the center of your life. Why? Now that's the way a lot of us have to be educated. Now that's the way a lot of us actually have to go and are able to actually work. And most of us now are even that's the way we're even getting our food. You're not only just shopping online for clothes and different things like that. A lot of us is now just shopping at home for food. So, and you're being kind of forced into that. Because, like I said, most of the places that you would go, a lot of them aren't even open past the time that you would need them to be open. A lot of them can't find the workers, and that's closing them down. And you see, it's a lot of the places that haven't been able to adjust to the digital world. Now, you may believe NFTs are a flash in the pan, but the value of digital artifacts has been growing for decades. Teenagers understand the money that they can make trading virtual swords or and shields in World of Warcraft or selling bells they've harvested in Animal Crossing. Top players in esports like League of Legends are earning 6 and 7 figure salaries, and people well outside the world of tech are paying for moments on NBA Top Shot, giving them ownership of a gift. Think about that. Power to the dark side, Mongo. Appreciate you in the building, guy. A life lived online. There is a grand vision of a network of a fully realized virtual world where users connect as believable avatars and carry their digital lives between VR, AR, and IRL as virtual reality, augmented reality, and and, and interactive reality. Right? So that's not how most people live today, but we're moving along a continuum where more of everyday life is meditated through digital worlds and personas with each passing year. It seems likely that the earlier you step into the metaverse, the greater the chances it will hold a deep and lasting significance as you age. Now, we already know that they're already starting as soon as they get into school, that, or even if they're in a actual physical school, like whether they're brick and mortar or they're at home, there still some type of way, there's some type of digital activity going on. There was some sort of immersion or them some sort of way being emerged inside of the metaverse, right? Whether they gotta pull out, I think nowadays they all have like little separate tablets that they have to have and keep them charged and all of that. So it's a lot of different ways that we already seeing them step into it. So that's just them preparing them already for the next step, right? We're already behind. So while virtual connections were a lifeline during a pandemic lockdown, when seeing each other in person was dangerous, I'm troubled by research that indicates teenagers whose everyday lives are dominated by their social interactions online are more likely to experience depression. We finna knock that out of the ballpark right now. And new research indicates that the connections between a life lived online and mental health struggles may not be as significant as early work claimed. The pandemic has been a powerful reminder that video calls and multiplayer games can only provide so much social substance. Right now, that's with him depending, and that's with them depending on things to go back to normal. But of course, they have to sell you that. We already know things ain't going back to normal. Get ready for the metaverse. So we talk about flawed data that led to findings of a connection between the time spent online with online devices and mental health problems. Right. This is new research published January 23rd, 2021. Right. This is by the University of Pittsburgh Health. Shout out to Tequila. Appreciate you in the Okay, thank you. All right. So when we talk about so when we talk about so yeah, this was flawed data basically, right? So let's get into it. Even a casual follower of the news over the last few years is likely to have encountered stories about research showing that digital technologies like social media and smartphones are harming young people's mental health. No truth to that. Rates of depression and suicide among young people have risen steadily since the mid 2000s, around the time that the first smartphones and social media platforms forms were being released, right? So there's just one problem. The evidence for a link between the time spent using technology and mental health is fatally flawed. Fatally flawed. Let me see. If you shout out the manga, what do you say? If you seen the movie Free Guy, it's about the bank teller discovers that he's actually a background player in an open world video game. It's a good one. It's called Free Guy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. Definitely. Definitely gonna have to check that one out. Shout out to Mongo for that. All right. So yeah, that information in itself is something that's just fatally flawed, right? So we can kind of get into that. Uh, so these measures typically ask people to give their best guesses about how often they use digital technologies over the past week or month, or even a year, right? These measures typically ask people to give their best guesses about how often they use digital technologies, right? So we'll keep going. The problem is that people are terrible at estimating their digital technology use. And there's evidence that people who are psychologically distressed are even worse at it. Researchers have recently begun to expose the discrepancy between self reported and actual technology use, including for Facebook smartphone, right? And the Apple, like the Apple tablets and stuff. So, simply put, to make conclusions and subsequent recommendations about something you're studying, you must ensure you're measuring the thing you're intending to measure. If your measures If your measures are defective, then your data is untrustworthy. And if the measures are not inaccurate for certain people, like young people or those with depression, then the data is even more untrustworthy. This is the case for the majority of research into the effects of technology use over the past 15 years. Imagine that everything known about the pandemic was based on people giving their best guesses about whether they have the virus instead of highly reliable medical tests. Now, imagine that people actually have the virus or more likely to misdiagnose themselves. The consequences of relying on this unreliable measure would be far reaching. This means that the putative link between digital technology and psychological distress remains inconclusive. In my own research as a doctor, oh my god, as a doctoral student in social work, I found that the link between digital technology use and mental health was stronger when self-reported measures were used than when objective measures were used. Right. So an example of the objective measures is Apple Screen Time application, which automatically tracks device use. And when I use these objective measures to track the digital technology use among young adults over time, I found that increased use was not associated with increased depression, anxiety, or suicidal thoughts. In fact, those who use their smartphones more frequently reported lower levels of depression and anxiety. Wanting to investigate this further, I left clinical practice for a PhD program so I could research why these technologies were harmful and what could be done to prevent these harms. Let's keep going. As I dove into the scientific literature and conducted studies of my own, I came to realize that the link between digital technology and well being was much more convoluted than the typical narrative portrayed by popular media. Now, the metaverse is a world that is waiting on you to build it. Simple and plain. This is, once again, this goes back to being in a fully mental state. This is a place that, as you think it, so it will be. This is fully your idea. This will be based on your ideas, your thoughts, your imagination, your creativity. All of this will determine who you are, what you are, how far you're able to go as we make the transition. Now we can fight it. We can fight it all that we want. But as a collective, humanity is taking the next step in evolution. That's the whole point. Everything works in a cycle. We've seen that everything is worked in a cycle. So if we're coming from a point of singularity, you better believe it's to go back to a point of singularity. And it's only a matter of time before we make our full round trip. And so I believe that we're coming up on that point. But that is a conscious shift. That's an instant conscious shift. A lot of people, what you will hear a lot of people compare it to, or a lot of people will be talking about is the rapture. But I think when people is talking about the rapture, I think that in itself is just talking about an instant shift in consciousness. And in that instant shift, that's instantly when you transcend your body. Shout out to who raised you. Power to the dark side, God. I appreciate you in the building. That's an instant shift. This is us and having actually a chance to reshape the principles and reshape the laws that govern us. We've made them once. We've done it, and we created a way. And but the problem is that we created brains that limit the information that we intake. That doesn't do the mind justice. That holds the mind back. That puts the mind in a box. The next shift for humanity is the unlocking or the opening of that box, unleashing your full consciousness. For a lot of you, you're pretty much there already. For a lot of you, you've already reached the point of where not only are you believing in things that are you believing in your thoughts are going to manifest into the material world, but you're also speaking them out into with authority. So a lot of you have already reached that state. It won't be much different. It won't be much different. Because even now, righteously, your mind and your thoughts can already break the laws and the rules that we have. Shout out to Dome on the political plug. Appreciate you in the building, God. You already have that ability. That's just on what you believe. A lot of time, I think it was either Farrakhan or Elijah Muhammad that was talking about. No, I think it was Farrakhan that was talking about the blueprint that's inside of our DNA to build what he calls to build a new heaven and a new earth. That's that's something that's real. Like you talking about us having unrealized potential. Our main issue is that we don't necessarily believe it. I think even when we talk about some of the things that black people talk about as a collective and some of the problems or the things that we complain about, we really haven't made our mind up as a collective that we want to change. Otherwise, our situation would change.
Too boring.
But in most cases, as a collective, in most cases,
You
we kind of,
broken.
and this be the thing when I be talking about praying against yourself unknowingly. For the most part, we pray for the system. We pray for the things that up to continue to uphold against it. We haven't yet really prayed for ourselves, not collectively, not to immediately change or shift our condition. And then not only that, making actually the next step to take action. Because a part of that too is believing, not only believing your work, but you like, yeah, that's really what it is. You got to believe in your work. So if you believe in your work, you do it without hesitation. You do it with confidence. You do it without second guessing yourself. If anybody has ever pitched before, right? So whenever you're pitching, you're if you're trying not to hit the batter, you're gonna hit them every time. I promise to God. If anytime you've ever pitched and you try not to hit the batter, you hit him every time, or damn near take his head off. So part of the issue though with that is you put him in your vision and you doubted the work that you put in. But eventually, when you're able to actually trust the work and you actually able to block other things or other distractions outside of your vision and outside of your focus, then you don't even see the batter and you throwing nothing but strikes. But sometimes we're aiming not to miss. And a lot of times that's where we go wrong at. That's a lot of times that's where we go wrong at. So a lot of us, and I need practice. I need practice on understanding of what it is that I'm actually thinking and how I can act and how I can actually manifest it. So there's multiple phases when we talk about this type of consciousness. There's a phase of it as far as for humanity in general. There's a phase of consciousness that we talk about for poor people. There's a phase of consciousness that we talk about for black people. There's multiple phases of it. These all of these happen on multiple levels simultaneously. All of them. But all of them are in your control. And I think that's the part we have got to eventually come to grips with. All of them. Even the machines that we will build that fully immerses into the metaverse. Those can't work without your consciousness. They just can't. The way that they operate is going to be dependent on your mind. So This leaves us once again with we already know which direction the world is moving in. Are you going to wait? And this is where black people always have kind of a lot of trouble. And when the times shift and different things like that, we usually end up being reactionary. But we still have a time. We are still in a moment of time where we can actually take action. There are ways to take action. But you don't want to go into the next world behind the 8 ball. We don't want to be in the next. Like we're already consumers in this reality. Let's avoid being consumers in the next. That's where we get in trouble. Let's be reaction. Let's not be reactionary, and we can actually take action. So we can talk about whether things are good or bad. The world, the current system, and the current function of the world is not good, or you could say it's not bad. It just is what it is. The shift is happening regardless, with or without you. Don't be one that gets left behind. And most of it is because we want to hold on to things that we believe that we have in the material world. But we stepping into a new phase that exceeds the material world. Be in a position to where you can be a creator. Because we all have that ability. A lot of us have things that we create in different ways. And now today the metaverse has opened it up so much to where literally your ideas it's much easier for you to turn your ideas into something that accumulates some sort of currency. Your art, your work, some of your dreams. Like some people just would like to hear your dreams, good or bad, nightmares, whatever. Like every the way of how not only we interact with each other has changed, but also how we trade with each other has changed. What I'm going to need from you in exchange for what I produce is starting to look a lot different now. Even the materials that I would normally need to produce, it looks different. So in a lot of ways, you can say things are out of your control, but nothing is out of your control because nothing is happening outside of your own head. So you're in full control. You're aware. It's just a decision that you got to make. What side of the shift are you going to be on? But we're going to make our full cycle as together as a mind, regardless of it. We're going to continue. It's going to be a full cycle that we will be making. Like I said, from point A or the point of symmetry to asymmetry, back into symmetry again. And probably just to create a new dream world all over. So, with that being said, I got to give a shout out to Sister Soul. She dropped the book on me that's heavy. I'm gonna be going into. It's called I think it's the Book of Secrets. Yeah, I think it's the Book of Secrets. Um, she had actually been going into that, and it's crazy because where she was actually picking up at, is actually where I was leaving off at on the last few of my shows. So it was real wild to actually hear that. So I'm gonna be reading some couple of pages out of that book, maybe a chapter or so, um, just on a couple of things, basically on not only just on just the function of the mind and the brain, but just like what reality is, how we interact with the real world, what that actually looks like, what is the real world, what is reality. Also, kind of like that transformation I was talking about, the metamorphosis, going from
Dad, can we help neighbor?
the going from actual from caterpillar to butterfly. All of that, it was just wild though to hear her talking about that last night, and then also she was talking about that this morning. So that'd be something that I'm definitely gonna be going into. I got something prepared also on the critical race theory. That's definitely something I gotta dig into. I don't know if y'all have been paying attention, but they have been claiming in a lot of different states that they were banning the critical race theory in the schools. Problem is that critical race theory isn't taught in any elementary schools or even high schools. So what the hell have they been banning? That's one of the questions that I think we got to raise whenever we talking about that. Um, and that goes into being careful with the propaganda that you're getting on the news, you know. And I hear a lot of cats they come around with the conservative talking points, and so hopefully, man. I think we had a discussion with a brother a while back. So he had a lot of conservative talking points. I wonder how he feels about the CRT. That's something I have to check and see. But yeah, when we talk about the critical race theory, that's something that's only taught in a select few colleges, and those are law schools, right? So like it's a select few law schools that actually teach the critical race theory. And what's even worse is when you listen to like mainstream media in general, they don't really quote any of the founders or any of the people who done work on critical race theory. They usually just quote a bunch of people who are like black radicals, maybe, and they'll just like tie them into the critical race theory. So it's a real odd game that they kind of play with that. But that'll be something that I'll be getting into. Like I said, kind of breaking that down. What are they banning? And like I said, if you want to know really what they're banning, if they're not banning critical race theory from the schools, then the only thing that they could be banning is Black history, right? And so that's really the true shift that we are starting to see, is that they're banning Black history in the schools and they're labeling it as critical race theory. So that'll be something that we definitely gonna get into, why they're doing that, how they're doing that. That's a part of them rewriting history, different things like that. Yeah, I wanted to keep this one short and give it some replay value. But yeah, that's that for the most part. I actually do have a part two to this also. But before I do the part two to this, I'm gonna actually do the part two to the Xenobots. And so it'll be the book that I got from Sister Soul. It'll be Critical Race Theory, Xenobots, and then I'll be revisiting the metaverse again. And so we'll, go just a little bit more in depth on that. Major, I appreciate you, Northern Brother. Definitely appreciate you in the building. I appreciate everybody that stuck it out. Definitely love. Definitely love. And y'all already know I'm petty. So we're gonna get out of here on my new favorite song. I'm sorry, I'm petty, y'all.
Ryu, this is crazy.
Yeah. Watch. Y'all already know what time it is, huh? Watch. Tell them keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama, everybody gon' get it. Everybody that's with them, cause everybody I lit them out. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama, everybody gon' get it. Everybody that's with them, cause everybody I lit them out. Niggas can't stand on shit, we living stressed out. Finna get a medal of honor, we bringin' facts out. And you get stepped on every time you step out. You not a stepper where you from, you a step down. And stop reppin' where you from, you a let down. Can't be seen where you from, you keep your head down. That fat nigga mention my name, I'm breaking lead out. RIP another boss nigga, I think he bled out. He ain't gon' make it, I'm taking another head count. COVID so hot, I keep him from leaving beds out. Niggas still snitching on live, bringing the fans out. They the last nigga took a O talking about how he dead now. You don't know your life too short, that had me stressed out. Somewhere he took a wrong turn, I on the death route. Try the little boy yard blue, I bring the chef out. Put a whole drum on the 9, that bitch attack now. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness. Swear to God on my mama, everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them cause everybody I hit them up. Keep playing dumb like ain't nobody a witness on my mama. Swear to God, everybody gon' get it out. Everybody that's with them cause everybody I lit them out. You can cry all you want, but I don't do tissue. So the guy you don't get through if you let blue get you. I put Nino on that mag, let my boo get you. Making Playboy moves with that new issue. When you surrounded by them snakes, you don't know who bit you. And that's the problem with you fakes, you don't know who hit you. And if I'm trying to make it shake, I don't care who with you. Call me Bruce MBD Sam, I got 2 pistols. AOI, a bunch of lanes, don't let that shoe fit you. And you better keep them tight, don't let that shoe fit loose. I can't miss, everything got shoe hit you. I ain't friendly, ain't shit, about blue being cool. And you know I don't forget him like an elephant. Ayo, and the eye really irrelevant. Assed out, and we know we lacking intelligence. Keep him out your circle before you regret you let him in.